Canadian musical theatre. Does it sound like an oxymoron? Well, the folks here today say no, and they are determined to make the new Theatre 20 company a success. Their first show, Bloodless, The Trial of Burke and Hare, is now playing at the Panasonic Theatre in downtown Toronto, and we are happy to welcome Adam Brazier, the artistic director of Theatre 20 and the director of Bloodless. Carly Street, who plays Janet Brown, the hooker with a heart of gold, that's her on the left, and Trish Lindstrom, who plays Helen Burke, the wife of William. And we're glad to have all of you here at TVO.
Thank you.
Really nice to welcome you all here. I'd like to separate our conversation into two parts if I can. First of all, I want to talk about the play. And then second of all, I want to talk about whether this new theater company that you've created, has got legs in what is already a very busy cultural scene in this province, okay? So we'll cut the discussion in half those ways. Adam, start us off. A synopsis of Bloodless. What's this play about?
Bloodless is the story of two Irishmen who move to Edinburgh, and they have a lodging house that they run with their partners, Helen, who's the wife of Burke, played by Trish Lindstrom, and Margaret, who is the wife of Hare, who's played by Jan Alexander Smith. And these two couples have a lodging house in Edinburgh, and they have no money. They're on the brink of eviction and starvation. And in great desperation, they go up to get money from one of their lodgers, and they find him dead. And not having the money to pay for a funeral or wanting to take the time to bury him, they decide to sell him to the medical academy as a cadaver. And they get £7.10, but they were only owed £4. So the light bulb goes off. Well, there's more money in selling bodies than there is in renting rooms. They go home and they go to evict another tenant who they find is on
almost dead.
Almost dead. He's teetering on death.
And thus we get onto the slippery slope.
And that's where the slope begins, where they have the discussion saying, do we help him along? He's going to die anyway. We might as well benefit from it now and save ourselves from the poorhouse.
This is a true story, right?
And this is a true story. What proceeded then was, after they make the commitment to kill poor old Joseph the Miller, 17 murders take place. And through watching their descent into madness and their moral corruption is really the joy of the show and the fun of it.
And this all happened a little over 200 years ago, right?
Yes,
a little under 200 years ago.
Late 1820s.
Okay, terrific. Trish, tell us about your character.
Helen,
she's the wife of one of the killers.
Is the wife of William Burke. And enamored of him in a lustful, greedy kind of way. She likes things, she likes looking pretty, so she's given a necklace as the first piece. And she becomes addicted to material items. The money comes in and she hears that, well, they're killing people, but gosh, it feels great to be wearing something, to have status, to be wearing something that shines and glitters. Not unlike many of our citizens of our culture, and our culture in general, basically, is material items and status and greed.
And she starts on that descent to wherever.
Descent to wherever, and I don't want to give it away too much, but becoming an accomplice in this for the greed, wearing blinders for the fact that she's attaining stuff.
Carly, your character is called a dirty whore for most of this show.
Yeah, it's really fun.
And yet she's kind of the one. Did I just hear that? Did I just hear that?
Just kidding.
And she's the one sort of unambiguously good person in this show.
Yeah, well, I would, off the top of the show, I would neither characterize her as good or bad. She's one of those individuals that's living, like you see on the street. You take a streetcar on Queen or wherever downtown Edmonton, you see people who are living moment to moment. She's just surviving. She has her good times and she has her bad times. And then a relationship develops with a fellow prostitute that takes an unexpected turn towards intimacy and joy or connection. And that woman disappears, and all of a sudden Janet develops, I would say, maybe not in an intellectual sense, but a larger world picture.
Yeah.
A reason to live and then a reason to fight.
Because this other person
changes her life, and all of a sudden she has a reason to live and then a reason to,
Do you like playing a hooker?
Honestly, Steve, it's tricky. The world we live in now, It's tough because in literature and on screen, and there have been some pretty thin portrayals of hookers, a very particular worldview of hookers that I think that we need, as a culture, need to start moving away from, looking at the levels. And so sometimes it's not fun playing a hooker. It's not fun.
But it's a rich part.
But it's a rich part, and it's a rich role, and it's a worthy tale to tell. So in that sense, it's fun to get in there and tell that story.
Adam, I want you to try and help us understand. I saw the show, and the audience is laughing and sympathizing with these killers. How have you managed to tell a story about two guys who get on a descent to immorality and murder, and yet the audience for much of the show sympathizes with them and laughs along with them as they sing and dance their way to murder?
They sing and dance their way to murder.
Well, they do.
Yeah. Wow, when you put it like that. I think it's part of that is it has to be attributed to Joseph Aragon's work, who is the writer. He's the writer, the playwright, the composer, and lyricist. And Joseph is from Winnipeg, Manitoba, and he has a real gift for rhyme, and he's clever. He's so clever in his songs, and so much of the rhetoric and debate of what is moral and not is seen with such kind of humor and joy that we get sucked into it. When they have their song as they're debating whether to kill the first person, the song is called "The Bugger Is Better Off Dead," and it's a very, very witty song that the audience laughs their way through, even to the point when they're finally deciding to suffocate this guy and kill him.
I got a clip of this. Can we see some of this?
Please.
Okay, control me, if you would. The bugger is better off dead. Roll tape.
Ah, but dead, aye, the bugger is better off dead. Best to end the strife when your wretched life is hanging by a thread. So sound the final clarion, it's a fill as well nigh carrion. Now I know it sounds barbarian, but the bugger is better off dead.
Are you seriously suggesting that
This isn't much different than what we did with Old Donald. The only real difference is between dead and nearly dead.
There's some very good kind of Gershwin-esque, Johnny Mercer-esque lyrics in this. I noticed, you know, Academy, Anatomy, Mad at Me, some nice rhymes. Phenomenal, Abdominal.
Yeah.
So
my favorite is
you like
my favorite
that,
is the quid pro quo is a tiresome go if the quo ain't worth the quid. When I literally had to sit down and figure what like how his brain came up with that. It's very Sondheim. It's very clever.
Trish, do you? Yeah, Sondheim. That would have been the better example.
Yeah.
You're right. Are there moments in this play where you are involved in all of this evil, and the audience is laughing along with you, and you say to yourself, "You shouldn't be laughing at this. This is not funny."
Oh, not for a moment. Laugh.
Oh, really?
But not play for laughs. I mean, the trick is not to play for laughs. But what I was going to say is that with humor, I read something the other day, and I thought, oh, of course. We laugh at things we understand. We laugh at the human condition. And so, which leads me to believe that if we're laughing at something like the bugger is better off dead, killing somebody, we have everything inside us that is just below the soil. Some of us, it's buried deeper in layers, deeper layers, but we are all capable of everything. So,
meaning great good and terrible evil.
and terrible atrocity. And yes, you know, being being psychotic and having a brain, you know, the chemicals in your brain altered. That's a whole other ballpark. But we're talking about the ability to laugh at this. There's something in us, I think, that we understand. And if you put a clown nose on it, put a clown nose. I mean, what we've got cartoons. Bash the other guy. Bash. Oh, he's dead, and then he comes back to life. That it almost has. There's a cartoony quality. We're not certainly playing it for that, but I think humor in anything, humor in tragedy, humor in anything, is delicious and addictive
and human.
And human.
Yeah. Carly, do you ever find yourself playing this part, and then in the middle of it, people are laughing at something that's really quite atrocious, and you wonder, why are you laughing at this? This is not good.
No, I mean look at stuff that's on YouTube. I mean, there's a YouTube clip, Steve, that is of a woman falling. She's stepping on grapes and falls out of a bucket and falls 5 feet and lands on her nose. And there's a sound that comes out of her mouth. It's like ow, 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 stop, ow. And when I need a good laugh, I get that stuff going, and I'm the worst. I laugh at human misery. Do it again, Jerry. Do it again. I think it's a good show if you've got people laughing at that kind of stuff. They're connecting with it as below the soil on a level. I think it's great.
And I think too, humor, it's a release valve. We cry or we laugh.
Right.
It's two sides of the same coin, or we're horrified, but often, or cough, or people cough when they feel uncomfortable. But often, laughter is a release because it can get intense and surprising. Well, that's what I love. What Adam so brilliantly has planted in the show, and Joseph's work, is the surprise. And when we often laugh when we're surprised, because or when we're scared. Oh, that was awkward. That made me sweat a little bit. So I think it's a show that offers a palette of many colors.
Carly, when you're on stage, presumably very immersed in the part and in the moment, can you hear the audience?
I do.
I
don't turn that off. I can feel them in a role like this. I try and not make sure, you can't control the event, to hear whether they're breathing with me. A role with like Janet, you want to stay in the moment, but also make sure that you're not going too quickly or leaving them out of the event. It's like keeping them close, just close enough so I can feel that they're breathing with me. Because that's the emotional stream, the heart stream of the story, just to make sure that they're near and that I haven't left them behind. That's what I keep an ear for.
Let me follow up on that, because presumably you can hear them when they're laughing or cheering, but breathing with you, you can really feel that?
Silence. Silence is the most powerful thing on stage. And there's those moments, I can only speak, I don't know, my experience as an actor has often been in that moment of thought or just before discovery, that intake of breath when all of a sudden the room collectively breathes with you, that's a very tangible and visceral moment as an actor. You can feel that.
Your play does raise a lot of very difficult ethical questions that you are forced to think about as you're watching this show. Under what conditions is it okay to, is it okay to take a dead person who's already dead and sell their body maybe under the table? That's one thing. And then, okay, they're almost dead. Well, they're not dead at all. Now they're actually quite alive, and we're going to kill them anyway and take them. Okay, so we understand there's lots of ethical issues. But there was one line in this where you'll remind me which character says it. The needs of science, the needs of science outweigh the needs of.
Yeah, well, Dr. Knox, who ultimately is they're kind of in many ways the greatest evildoor of them all, because he silences. He just keeps accepting these bodies, knowing full well that these men are killing people, innocent people, and he is his own greed. His greed is the greed of knowledge. His greed is to say, I will make this university better by having these cadavers. I will produce better doctors, and humanity will benefit from this. And that was his evil doing.
So some people have to sacrifice in order that more be helped by science.
Thomas says it to you. What does he say?
He says, the sacrifice of the few to help the many. And Janet's response is, well, the few have sacrificed indeed. I hope the many are appeased. And it's an interesting word, appeased, too, because it's as though the many are not just asking for the help, but they're somehow swallowing up. There's a consumption, there's an element of consumption, like new knowledge, or the pursuit of knowledge is actually like a consumer consumption. More knowledge, give me more technology, there's an element of that in the story. I hope that the many are appeased, that their appetite has been sated.
Well, but similarly, an appetite for stuff, it's consumption of goods, it's consumption of wealth, of status. It's greed. To me, it's the base, at the base of it is greed.
But if you think of it as a bigger ethical issue, there are lots of times in history, you think of wars where some soldiers are sent in to die in hopeless missions in order that a greater good, will eventuate out of it. Did you see that theme coming through in this play at all here? That there's somehow a greater good for science in the sacrifice of these people?
Well, yeah, Dr. Knox makes that. He's got a song called Our Noble Cause that really is the discussion there. The body is a temple full of esoteric wonders, but once it is deserted, shall we let the gifts within there decay, forever hidden from the light of day? Or shall we learn? Shall we grow? Shall we explore? You know, and then ultimately, the apex of that song is when he goes to rival the gods, and you see that the hunger for knowledge that he has. And again, it's not that the knowledge that he's seeking is bad. It's just the way he goes about seeking it.
And also that the people who are paying are the people at the bottom of the
right.
totem pole. People that we don't care about, or we don't care, that disappear. The undesirables. It's the folks who never get to really weigh in on the argument.
Yeah.
They're the ones that suffer for it.
In a way, it's maybe I'm overreaching here, but I certainly saw a bit of the 1% versus the 99% in this play as well.
Oh yeah, for
so
sure.
I'm not overreaching.
Not at all.
No, not at all.
You see that too?
Not at all, yeah.
Okay. Well, for what it's worth, I really enjoyed the play, and I wish you well with it.
Thank you.
Having said that, we're now going to talk some business.
Yeah.
Let's just start by with this. It's called Theatre 20, your new company. Why is it called Theatre 20?
Well, we got together initially because there was 20 artists that wanted to work together. 20 artists that wanted to work on musical theater and text that challenged us.
And these are two of the founding
Yes, they are
artists
two of the
here.
founding artists here. And so, and as am I, and I certainly didn't go into this with the desire or pursuit to become the artistic director. Things just kind of unfolded as they did.
And what is the mission of this new Theatre 20?
Well, we have our mandate, we really poured ourselves over this mandate for some time because we wanted to make sure that the mandate that we created would be something that was required, a necessity, something that is missing within our culture and our community, but at the same time, something that doesn't necessarily interfere with other companies that are doing work in the musical theater as well. And so, you know, our mandate is threefold. The first is to the development and fostering and nurturing of new Canadian musical theater. The second was to reimagine existing repertoire from the international canon. And finally, the third is to develop a mentorship of musical theater talents, from the artists to the composers to the librettists to the lyricists.
Let me follow up with Carly on this, because you've done movies, you've done TV, you've done stage, and I want to get a better understanding of the significance of an artist-led theater company as opposed to something where presumably the business people or the producers or whoever else is in charge.
I think with an artist-led company, the community the community that the company is in is actually getting its finger on the pulse of the art and the ideas and the comedy of the time. If the artists are choosing what they're programming, and here we are, the 20 of us, are deciding that we think this is thrilling and exciting, we're tapping in on a level that isn't saying this is about business or this isn't about laying out the status quo. This is about, we're speaking about something that's of our time, that we're interested in on a social level or a political level. That's the difference, I would say, as speaking from artists from our community, that we're producing things that we think matter to people like us and people like yourself, Steve, and that we're making the decisions not just intellectually but intuitively, that we have a lot more knowledge and power as artists than I think in this arena as an artist-driven company than we do as artists working on a film set or a TV set or at a commercial theater venue. We actually have power to disseminate our ideas and our sense of humor and just maybe change the culture a bit.
Huh. So Trish, this is more, again, just to try to get inside the bones of this and understand it better. If it's an artist-led effort, it's more, I'm not saying this right, but you'll know what I mean. It's more bottom-up as opposed to top-down. It's not.
It's a perfect way of describing it, and to
well,
change the
the
definition
are on the bottom, and I don't mean to say
but
that, but you know what I mean.
But it's true. There is a hierarchy in our culture, and so to try to change the definition, to kind of take those words and say, well, hopefully, let's move it to there will be a middle ground, so that nobody is top and nobody is bottom.
Everybody meets in the middle.
And you know, similarly with Bloodless. I mean, it's the same kind of thing. It's saying, well, prostitutes are down here, and why? Because of money? Because of coins and status, and because you're born into a certain kind of family? But certainly, having a voice in anything is empowering.
But let me understand that, because it's at the end of the day, someone's got to decide.
Yeah.
Usually it's the director.
Yeah.
Are you saying it doesn't work that way when it's an artist-led, actor-led company?
It definitely does. It has to. It has to, or there's mayhem, there's mayhem. There has to be a structure.
So he does get the last word.
So he's certainly the last
Well,
word,
as the director,
but as the director,
for Bloodless, for sure. Well, actually, the last word really goes to Joseph, the writer. Yeah. But Joseph, he's an amazing collaborator. So yeah, when we're working as a team, when we're working in the capacity of rehearsal, it's a very gracious room. It's not about we understand. We've all been around the theater and been doing this long enough to know how it works and what the pecking order is, and in terms of, deciding factors. As a company, it's a little different. As a company, we all bring ideas to the table. As a company, we can all say, this script is good, this script is not so good. Let's make decisions and choices to program shows that we as artists are interested in.
Well, that's what I mean. So unlike in other theaters where the boss is going to say, here's the show we're going to do, do you guys sort of look at a bunch of different scripts and vote and majority wins?
You've got it.
Yeah. That's how it works.
Pretty much.
So that is different.
That is, yes, it's quite different. So we are speaking to each other about what we want to produce and then bringing that to you guys.
And it has to be, and this is where I actually find the most pride in this, but also the biggest difficulty is the challenge of everybody checking their egos at the door. Because we have a very eclectic and very rich group of artists that are founding this company. And for everybody to say, you know what, for someone like Nora McClellan, for example, who's had an incredible career in the theater, to be able to say, yeah, I like this show and this show. There's no parts in me for either of these shows, but I'm okay because it's not about me. It's about what we are putting on, what we as a company are striving to do.
But I hear these two are incredible egomaniacs. How do you manage all of that?
Oh.
Whips.
A lot of booze. A lot of booze, whips.
I mean, the wonderful thing is, I've known Brazier for, 18 years now, and Carly and I were in the same high school, right? So
where?
Etobicoke School of the Arts.
Oh, okay.
But ultimately, having that kind of history, people and Evan I've known similarly for 15 years. If you say, oh, your chemistry on stage, well, that doesn't come from nothing. And the way that we can check our egos at the door, there isn't a threat. That it does feel like a family, and that you can say, okay, we can call each other out on our dirt, and we can just say, the intent is from the heart. It's coming from the heart. This is fun.
Do you have any good fights though?
I've not been witness to that. No,
but
discussions.
I wouldn't say fights.
No.
Not yet. There's no doubt we're going to get there. Yeah. It's inevitable because we're passionate people. We all have a lot to say.
And we can say it. Going back to what we're talking about an artist-led company versus working for. We can say, okay, hold on. Are we doing this or are we doing this? If we're doing this, I'm on side. If we're doing this, we need to talk. We need to have it out.
And we've had several of those. And in general, those phone calls come to me, which is totally fine. Well, I'm the quarterback. That's the way it works.
I'm the quarterback.
And I get that.
You like that, eh?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Your mission talks about story-driven musicals.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Well, for us, we are. If you were to go down and look at all of the founding artists that kind of got together, we're all really primarily actors first. Actors who sing. And actors who like singing and love the musical form. And what so often has happened in our culture, because we don't have the resources to develop these new works in Canada, because the musical theater is infinitely more expensive. It just is. And generally, when companies in this country choose to do a musical, it's to finance other shows. So if we're going to do this production of Anything Goes, it's because we know that it's a happy show, people like it, there's lots of happy music and dancing, they know it'll make money, and then we can go and do this other play that is not going to sell the same way. And so it's about balancing books. The problem with that theory, although it's worked very effectively for many companies, the problem with that theory for us as artists is it means we are always a slave to doing shows that are going to essentially be feeding to the lowest common denominator.
Well, commercial.
It's all it's about.
And maybe not new.
I spent 18 months singing ABBA. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm grateful for the house. I'm grateful for the house that ABBA built, and I'm living in it right now. But
just to be
18
clear,
months.
You're not talking Mamma Mia, though, right?
Yeah.
You are talking Mamma Mia. Oh yeah, you were in that with Louise, weren't you?
Yes, I was.
With Louise Fitzroy. Yeah. Okay. Which role did you play?
I was Sky. I was the ingenue, the young ingenue in it.
The guy in the commercial who takes his top off and he's like, yeah.
Yeah, that was me.
Awesome.
In a much more fit day.
But But how many weeks into that were you thinking, I'm really sick of singing ABBA songs?
Day 2.
Come on, really?
Well, no, I mean, I love ABBA, and it was a fun ride to be on. It was a great journey. But you know, as an artist, I just felt like I was doing a cruise ship show. Like I felt like I was out there going, okay, now I'm going to go out and just sing some ABBA, and then I'm going to go. And
you did notice, Adam, that at the end of every show, people were on their feet cheering and loving it, and
well,
et cetera.
If I could tell you a very quick story, I was in Boston doing that show when 9/11 happened. Huh. I was living 3 blocks away from the hotel that the Al Qaeda guys were staying at the night before, when they flew out of Boston. And the first night when it happened, and they canceled the show. You know, national day of mourning, a global day of mourning. And then the next day they said, we're doing this show. And I felt so inappropriate. I said, this is not appropriate to be going and singing this trite song, this ridiculous story. I do not feel good about this. And we walked to the theater, and it was the time when the entire nation had decided to do a candlelight vigil. So I walked to the theater with my candle, and I got to the stage door, I handed it off to some stranger, and I walked in thinking, this is wrong. I shouldn't be doing this. And I was never more wrong. When the show finished that night, the audience, the cast, all of us were in tears. And it's not because it was some great piece of high art that asked a lot of questions and challenged its audience. It was a release, and they needed that release. At that time, that was the best medicine for everybody in that theater. And so like those shows have value, but we as artists, we want to ask big questions in this form. And very often we're not allowed to do that here because we have to make sure that they are commercially viable.
Right.
So Bloodless is a perfect example because it just asks a wealth of questions.
It does. Let's take another clip from Bloodless, and then we'll come back, talk some more. Roll tape, please.
Rest in peace now, my dear old Uncle Bob. How come we've never heard of this Bob before? He was a private man, from the crowds he ran, but he lived his life with glee. He was filthy rich, but the only hitch was he had no heirs but me. Though I filled my plate from his grand estate, I assure you I ain't no snob. Throw wide the doors, what's mine is yours, in the words of Uncle Bob. Uncle Bob, the one and only. Uncle Bob, a man apart. Uncle Bob of such a will and such a philanthropic heart. So let's drink around on me now, till our heads all pound and throb. Let's raise a glass to a man of class, our dear old Uncle Bob. Let's raise a glass to a man of class, our dear old Uncle Bob.
That's the aforementioned Evan, who plays William Burke. Is there anything in those cups?
No.
There's no liquid in those cups.
It's too dangerous. All that dancing.
There's spirit, inspiration.
Inspiration in the cups. I want to ask, okay, Carlene, let me start with you on this. Yeah. Canada has not had what you might call great good luck developing its own musicals and having them get out there to the world and make a ton of money. I mean, you can think of The Drowsy Chaperone, I guess, and maybe The Return of Martin Guerre, I guess, and then...
Anne of Green Gables.
Sorry?
Anne of Green Gables.
Anne of Green Gables, of course. But let's put it this way. It's a pretty short list, and you're trying to do something which hasn't really had a lot of success in the past.
Yeah.
So what gives you any confidence that you can do what others have really had a tough time doing?
Golly, we have great taste. You know, I think we have the wisdom of experience. We've now been doing this, Canada's been producing musical theater now for, I'm going to throw it out there, 45, 50 years. We have a little bit more experience under our belts. Our founding artists have a lot of experience doing new musicals, workshopping these new musicals, getting a sense of what's out there, what lands. It's sort of, we're at a point where it's taking our collective experience and using that to see if we can't map out a journey forward with it. That, to me, is what will be our success, is our collective experience.
Trish, why do you think this can work?
I may sound like Pollyanna here, but if the intent in the heart is pure, we have the world ahead of us that is offering a wealth of gifts. It's just the way that it tends to work.
You're competing, though, in a very competitive cultural environment. Mm-hmm. You are, at the end of the day, running a business.
Yeah.
Even though this is an artistic endeavor, you are running a business. Do you
I
worry
still
about all
think
that?
I still think the heart drives through, and mind you, I have the luxury of being just a piece of the puzzle. I'm not the puzzle. I'm not at the helm of the puzzle, but I do believe that our experience and our passion and our drive will drive the boat forward. in whatever capacity it needs to be driven. It may not be what we originally envisioned, but wherever it goes, it'll go somewhere. I have no doubt that it will go somewhere, and it may look different than the original picture we drew.
Great helmsman, what do you say?
Yeah, I think they're both right. I mean, it's who knows where it's going to end. The business side of this is brutal. We're in a very tough economic time right now, that people don't have a lot of disposable income, dispensable income, and I think that we as theater practitioners suffer when, you know, a great deal when our audience is less than full. It's and you know, it's nothing more depressing than walk into a show that you only find, you know, 100 people there. You know, and that is not a sign necessarily of the art. That's a sign of our ability to foster and nurture these works and foster and nurture new audiences.
So let me follow up on that. You saw Richard Azunian's piece in the Toronto Star, no doubt, which wrote about your show, and he said one of the questions he raised was, you're in the Panasonic Theatre, which is what, 800 seats? 700 seats? Should you have started this theater company in a smaller venue where you didn't have to worry about filling so many seats, so many nights?
It's not about worrying about filling so many seats for us. I mean, it's you know, we don't base the running costs of our show on a full house. You know, so we could have done exactly the same show in you know, the downstairs at Berkeley space, and I'm sure it would have been equally as wonderful there. What this offered us was a tremendous amount of exposure to the public. We're working with the Mirvishes on this. The Mirvishes have been an incredibly gracious and helpful company. We simply wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them.
But they're in business.
They are in business.
To make money.
They are our landlords. That's their function. But you know, they're gracious in their mentorship and helping us with our marketing. And because we are using them, we have access to infinitely more people because of it. So our reach is much stronger. And if the musical theater is going to survive here, and if we're actually going to have the money and the funds to develop the infrastructure that it needs to develop these new works properly, then we're going to have to rely on more than just foundations and government grants.
Okay, let me ask another smart-ass follow-up here. You ready for this?
Yeah, please.
I was sitting beside a judge when I went to see the show, and the judge said to me, who liked the show very much, but said, wait a second, you guys are supposed to be doing Canadian musicals, right?
Yeah.
So here's a story about, you know, all of the big issues, the ethical issues in life and killing and murder and so on. How come they didn't decide to tell the story of Stephen Truscott, for example, who's a guy who had a murder charge unfairly over his head for 40 or 50 years or something and eventually busted out? This is a story about two Scots from 200 years ago.
Yeah.
So how is that Canadian?
Well, it's written.
Scots formed this province, man.
They built this country. It's a Canadian piece. I mean, it's not. Our mandate is not necessarily to tell Canadian stories. It's not. You know, I don't think anybody. Like, man, I tried to write a musical about Isaac Brock, and I can tell you, I was bored by it.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a great writer, but the point is that, you know, you're not just. This is an entirely Canadian project. Every actor on stage, our playwright, our musicians, our crew, it is an entirely local and Canadian production. Now, the subject matter may not be, but the subject matter is universal, and that's what's important.
Okay, gotcha. Who's going to come see this show? And by that I mean, you know that out there in the theater landscape in Toronto, you got people who are taking buses up from Buffalo and Rochester and, you know, when the dollar was a little lower, Columbus, Ohio, for goodness sakes. Who's your audience now, Carly? What do you think?
I think it's the folks who live around the corner
So
here.
it's basically people in town.
I'd say people in town.
Yeah.
And that's who I want. I've always wanted to build or continue to build a local community, people who are dedicated to seeing theater in this town, good theater too, and who have a following for the local artists who say, gosh, Adam Brazier directed that. He directed Assassins at the Theater Center. That thing was amazing, or I heard it was amazing. I got to go see that. So instead of being like, ABBA wrote this, we have to see it. It's Adam Brazier directed this, or Trish Lindstrom. I saw her at the Shaw Festival. She's amazing. She's in this new musical. Getting people knowing what we're doing and really digging what we're doing at Yonge and Eglinton, or at Queen and Roncesvalles, or in Scarborough.
Taking the TTC to
Taking
see
the
theater
TTC.
instead of having to own a car to see theater. And so our ticket prices, though they are higher than, say, at the the Tarragon, where we have rush seats now, but imagine the cost of putting yourself up overnight, and you have people in your own city. You can walk, you can take the bicycle and go see great music theater. You don't have to go to other places.
And this theater is a 5-minute walk from Yonge and Bloor, we should just say.
There couldn't be a more central location, basically.
Which is also one of the reasons we liked it. But I will say that in order for us to succeed, and one of the reasons we have gone into this theater, and we were, you know, the ooze, as he's lovingly referred to,
Richard Azuni.
Yeah, commented on is because if we are going to survive, the musical theater is so expensive that if we are going to survive, we have to have a bigger demographic. We have to be able to reach 905. We have to bring 905 in too, and because this is the theater that 905 goes to. 905 isn't traditionally going to the backspace at Passe Muraille, although I encourage them to do so because there's some great work going on there. Right. What they know is what they read, the big full-page ads in the Toronto Star. Warhorse, I'm going to go see Warhorse. I'm going to go, you know, I'm going to go see Rock of Ages, and we need to get those people to start coming to other theaters. My greatest happiness in this would be that if the 905 people came to see this show and really enjoyed it and said, well, what else is going on? What's going on over at Soul Pepper? What's happening at Angel Walk Theater? Can I go over there and see what's happening there? And suddenly their eyes open up to a world that they don't know, because really the only thing they do know is what they see full-page ads for.
Yeah. Guys, I wish you well with it. And thank you so much for coming in today to TVO to tell us all about it. Adam Brazier, the artistic director of Theatre 20 and the director of this one, Bloodless. Carly Street, who plays Janet Brown, Trish Lindstrom, who plays Helen Burke, the wife of William Burke. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
Support Ontario's public television. Donate at tvo.org.